Today on the show, we want to talk about wheat broadleaf herbicides. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about how you get the very best broadleaf control in your wheat crop going into this next year.
Well, I remember when I was starting out as an agronomist and I was working with some guys that had wheat, and I said, what do you do for weed control in wheat? And I was thinking back to what we did on our farm as well, and it was no different than what these guys were doing. Well, I used a little bit of 2,4-D out there. It wipes out the weeds. It doesn't cost very much money. Hey, everything's okay. Well, in the process of doing that over a whole generation or two, we've got weeds that are more tolerant to 2,4-D, and we're using higher rates of 2,4-D. And as we bump those rates up, we're starting to see a lot more crop response from 2,4-D.
All right, so when we talk about this 2,4-D thing, if you don't believe what we're saying, just try some side-by-side things out, split fields, that kind of thing, and you have to look real close because we're talking in a lot of cases it's a bushel loss, maybe 2 bushel loss, but that loss is more than enough to switch to another product. What we usually talk about, the two base products that we've got are Wide Match and Husky. And for both of them, they're combination products. With Wide Match, you've got Starane and you've got Stinger in there. The top two weeds that we've seen in wheat in the last 20 years are Canada Thistle and Kochia. Well, Starane is as good a product as there is on Kochia, and Stinger is the very best product in wheat for Canada Thistle, and it's got residual. So we've got a really good option, a really good package there with the Wide Match, but then you compare that to Husky. Husky is much more broad spectrum. It's got Buctril, which is a contact killer, and it's very good on a lot of the large seeded broadleaves. But then you also have the HPPD component. It's not sold by itself, but it would be somewhat similar to Callisto, Laudis, Impact, Armazon in corn. So if you're used to those products, that's the type of thing that you're getting in this combination with Husky. We really like the HPPDs, totally different than that Buctril chemistry, makes for a nice combination.
All right, let's go back and talk about that Wide Match just a little bit. It's Starane and it's Stinger, so yes, you've got the best product for Kochia, the best product for Canada Thistle. Awesome. However, there's more than just those two weeds out in fields, and as we've seen, as Wide Match has become a very popular product, okay, there's a couple of holes. Here's this weed or here's that weed that I need to add a tank mix partner. Some of the other products that have been used have been out of the ALS family of chemistry. So things like Addition Broad Spec and Addition Tank Mix have been used to try to broaden that weed spectrum out once again. Now, if you've got ALS resistant Kochia, that's probably why you switched away from using those ALS herbicides. However, you've got Starane in the mix, so the Kochia is wiped out. Now you're looking at a lot of those other small seeded broadleaf weeds that we can bring some of those ALS products back into the mix. Now, the good part about the ALS herbicides is crop safety. We don't have to worry about crop injury with them. We get a broad spectrum of weeds under control, and they easily tank mix with a product like Wide Match.
All right, when you start talking about tank mixes, the first thing I think about is a tank mix with a grass killer. I realize it's very tempting to throw your grass killer in with your broadleaf killer, and if you only have a little bit of grass, it's probably just fine. What we worry about is not so much the broadleaf killer, it's really the grass killer. In other words, when you throw in a Husky or a Wide Match or almost any broadleaf product together with a grass killer, we're worried that we're going to hurt the grass performance. In a lot of cases, it might be a 5 or 10% reduction in grass control. So like I say, if you only have a few grass plants out in the field, who cares if you get 90% or you get 99%? But you know what? If I've got a big problem with cheatgrass or wild oats, or maybe it's just foxtails, I want to have the very best grass control possible. In that case, you're going to want to split apply. Spray the grass killer first, then come back a week or 10 days later with the broadleaf killer.
Okay, now with Husky, with the crop rotational restrictions, there are some things like peas and other crops that you just can't rotate to as quickly as you would like. So watch out for those rotational restrictions. Then the other thing with Husky is, what is the best tank mix partner? And many times it's just use a little bit more Husky. We see so many guys looking at the price point of Husky and saying, you know, here's the rate that I can afford, rather than what rate is it going to take to kill the weeds. And we don't put enough value on what weed control is worth. So watch the actual rate that you need to use for Husky, and if you need a tank mix partner, you may just go up to the maximum labeled use rate. In many cases, that's enough to take care of those tougher weeds.
Here are a couple of things you've got to keep in mind. Number one, you want the very best growing conditions possible. So if it's been warm, it's going to be warm for another couple days, and you spray on a day that's, let's say, 80 degrees, it's been 80 for the last couple days, hey, that's awesome, especially if you've got ample moisture and the plants are actively growing. We want those weeds actively growing, you're going to get a better kill. The other thing is spray coverage. with contact killers like Buctril, for example. That's a contact killer. We want the very best spray coverage possible. And I realize you might also be spraying Roundup somewhere in your farm. So you've got these drift reduction nozzles. You got to take those out when we start talking about wheat spraying. I don't care what you're spraying in wheat. I want the best coverage, which means I want extended range flat fan nozzles. That's the way to go. Get smaller droplets, get better coverage. You will get better weed control. So it's not always about upping the rate. In a lot of cases, hey, if I spray on the right day, I use the right spray nozzle, put it together with the right combination, have the right tank mix and the right spray adjuvants, I can do an excellent job.
The other thing that I would say with broadleaf weed control in wheat is we need to get out there a little bit earlier. We see too many times we get busy with all kinds of other things and we don't get out there on time. It's really critical because especially in a crop like wheat, you're going to have canopy so quick compared to a wide row crop. Getting out there earlier allows that wheat to get up a little faster and then choke out any future competition coming. We can really wipe weeds out in wheat. We just have to be aggressive getting out there and getting it done.
Well, one of those weeds you might see in wheat is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to stop it next.